Welcome to the LowCarbMD podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope.
As we have always said, we are bringing you medical information and cutting-edge science, but none of this is medical advice. Please seek out input from your own doctor.
Hello and welcome to the LowCarbMD podcast. Tro, we're reunited, man. We've been separated for a little while. It's been kind of crazy, but it's been good.
I know
How's life treating you, brother?
It's been a long time. It's nice to be back. It's nice to be back. You're a hot shot now. You got your own podcast, you got your own
You
practice.
too, man. We're both doing other stuff, so it's kind of fun.
You're like a big hot shot, but anyway, we got a great guest today. Somebody who actually was too cool for us. He blew us off, but now he finally stooped down to our level, and he came on the podcast. He's always interested me on social media. One, he's just been doing this for so long. You can tell he's a wealth of information. Two, he calls me Dr. Kardashian, so that, he has a warm place in my heart just because of that. Dan, it's awesome. Is it Dan, Daniel? What do you want to go by? Steak and Iron. Tell me what you want me to.
Dan or Daniel's fine. Everybody who knew me in grade school still calls me Danny, but yeah, either one. I'm not really too picky about it. And I'm sorry about having to blow you guys off some time ago. I had an appointment to wash my hair. You wouldn't know anything about that. But I'm glad we're able to make it work today.
There's other important things that roll up in life, we get it.
It is what it is, but I'm glad we were able to make it work because I've always been a big fan of what you guys do. Me and I think I was basically there when Tro sort of came on the scene on Twitter, but 4 or 5-ish years ago, whenever that was. And I think we have a lot of shared perspective on health and how health fits into the real world and real practice and making it work for yourself. So I'm glad to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, let's just get started with let's start with some cool stuff, and then we'll go back to your own origin story. So apparently somebody wants to report you to the Health Information Gestapo because you apparently saw a couple in Costco going keto. And you're like, wow, I'm so happy for them. They have, looks like they have their heads on straight. I saw you write about it. And then somebody wants to report you to the public misinformation Gestapo and get you banned like Sean Baker.
Hey,
blew my mind. It's like, where's the controversy? Okay, let me bring everybody in. Oh, yeah, please, go ahead.
Tell me what happened to Sean Baker, man. I've been off the radar a little bit. I'm off Twitter for a couple of weeks. So I hear, a good friend of mine says, hey, how come I can't get in touch with Sean Baker? And I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, he's been barred from Twitter for something. What did he do?
I don't know, but there's a big push in online to censor quote unquote healthcare misinformation. And I saw Daniel, Danny, whatever you want to, Steak and Iron, whatever we're going to say. I saw him post just an endearing comment, right? An endearing comment. Yeah. It was like, hey, I was at Costco and I saw a couple, ready to go on this journey together. They were stocking up on meat, eggs, fish, chicken. And he was like, I feel so happy for them. It was like an endearing comment. I was like, wow, the guy who calls me Dr. Kardashian has made a turn. He's made an emotional turn. He's empathetic, and somebody comes down on him saying like, this should be reported for healthcare misinformation, just because he said
it was bizarre because it was so innocuous. There was a cart behind me of some people, and it would be very difficult. I mean, you'd have to be very far on the completely off the chain vegan spectrum to look at this cart and say this is an unhealthy cart of food. It was meat and vegetables, and then a couple like keto staples like the cream and bacon. But it's not like a cart overflowing with bacon and eggs and cream, which is what I think that these vegan idiots think that we would just wake up in the morning and then chug a 16-ounce glass of cream and then go sit on the toilet for 3 hours or whatever the hell they think we're doing. But it was a big basket of whole healthy food, exactly the way that human beings have been eating it for the last 3 million years. And I was like, good. These guys, they're young, it was clearly a couple. They were together. They said, we're going to do this thing. We're going to hop on this together. We're going to do it the right way with real food. You know, this wasn't full of like, you know, like bagged shit that says keto on the front. It's like, oh, keto popcorn or whatever the hell people are eating these days. It was real food. I was like, this is awesome. I love to see this, because a lot of time when I see people that look, and I'm just going to be frank, when people that look like they have a lot of weight that they, you know, would maybe want to lose, they're either pushing a cart full of junk, or they are pushing a cart full of things like your lean cuisine, or, you know, in Diet Coke and all the other kind of stuff. It's like, will that work for some people? Maybe, but I think that going in the, you know, in the direction of a whole food diet and cutting out the crap is the right way of doing it. And then like some person with half the alphabet after their name comes after you and be like, oh, this is misinformation, yada yada. I'm like, it's not misinformation to comment on somebody's grocery cart. I'm not prescribing them bacon and eggs. I'm saying that these people look like they're doing low carb. It looks like they're doing it right. Good for them. And where's the disagreement? There's not even an argument being made. I'm just stating a fact. And I don't know, some people just, it's like professional butthurt or something. I don't know.
So let's get started. So today we got Dan Weisman, somebody I've followed essentially for the past, I don't know, 5-6 years. When I first came on Twitter, just as snarky, just as funny, still snarky, still funny, still doesn't give a crap. And so I'm really kind of like happy and excited to have you on here. And he's been doing low carb. He's been doing this way of eating for a decade. And so definitely we have things to learn. And I wanted to hear, I've heard him on at least Vinny's podcast, and apparently he's been on a couple others. So I just wanted to go into the story a little more. I've seen pictures of his 2-year-old little nugget, thought he was a little bit older. So I want to hear more about the guy, you know, behind the snark. So so 10 years ago, where do you find yourself? Where's your health? And why do you start chugging bacon grease and, you know,
that's all I do.
Doing heavy cream enemas. Why'd you start doing heavy cream enemas? You know, can you tell us?
I don't know. I think I probably saw Dave Asprey do it or something. He's putting all kinds of stuff in his ass all the time. Who knows? But what happened is I got out of college, and I went to college in California, and I moved out when I was relatively young. Some people would say that it's, you know, not that young. I moved out when I was 18 or 19. But that's pretty unusual to do here because it's so expensive. You know, it was in San Jose, California, which was distinctive in that it was the first city in the United States to have the median house price of over $1 million. So very expensive, right in the heart of Silicon Valley. And I moved out, and I was working a lot. I was also taking a full engineering course load. And that left very little time or money to take care of myself. So any kind of physical activity was just off the table. I had no time. There was no time for working out.
So high school gym
jogging.
Class was done, basically. High school gym class was over.
Yeah. So I mean, I had like to do a couple of PE classes as part of my general education, but I did a weightlifting class, which was fun, and then I did a Tai Chi class, which was just an absolute waste of time, but it was fun. You got to do the whole, slow motion and relax and all that fun stuff. But yeah, I know, when I was much younger, I was a pretty active kid. I did, martial arts, I did dance, I did sports and things. And I was never a skinny kid, but I was always in fairly good shape. I was very strong. And it seems like my body likes to gain muscle pretty easily. But yeah, that all kind of fell away in college because I had no money, I had no time. I couldn't afford really to eat. I really couldn't afford the time to cook for myself and actually have good food. So, a lot of it was the ready packaged foods and whatever I could afford, whatever was on sale, which is a lot of, bulk packaged, inexpensive, highly processed foods. I would get, I had deals with the local Starbucks where all the pastries and stuff that they'd throw at the end of the day. I would get a share of them, which was technically against company policy, but I was friends with the guy, so I got some free stuff there. And that's really kind of how I subsisted for a good long while. And I survived, and I got my degree, and I realized after I had graduated that I was in very poor health. Even at, in my mid-20s, I had no energy. I would fall asleep at the wheel driving fairly often, actually. And, I'm very sure that I probably would have died if I had continued on that path of just constant exhaustion. Again, California, you drive. We have long commutes. and having an incident where I'd wake up drifting off into a ditch or wake up at a stoplight. It's jarring, and you wonder what the hell is wrong with me.
Sounds like sleep apnea to me. What do you think?
Could be sleep apnea.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't want to make a diagnosis. It's not a medical diagnosis, but a lot of times we see that symptom in people who are overweight.
Or you're in med school, and residency.
Yeah.
It certainly could be. And I look back on a lot of these problems, and it seems like they all kind of line up with some of the knowledge that I had now. Because I would get I would get a lot of sleep after college. To get a full 8 hours, 9 hours of sleep, and I'd still wake up exhausted, and I go through my day exhausted, and then I'd come home and I'd be exhausted, and I'd do the work that I need to do to finish the day, be exhausted, go to bed exhausted, and then do it again the next day. And that does line up a lot with sleep apnea, but it could be a lot of things. Like constant neck pain, back pain, knee pain, nosebleeds, I'd get a lot of. Low just drive, low libido, didn't really feel like doing anything. And if I had insurance, which I didn't because I was still broke, I may have been diagnosed as depressed in some way or something, I don't know, but just a very something was very clearly wrong. I felt like an old man, and I developed problems that young people don't get. Lasting problems. Like I don't have full feeling in my fingertips and toes. What I now know is what appears to be diabetic neuropathy. And it's been around since my 20s. That doesn't happen terribly often to somebody my age. I got 2 pulmonary embolisms, which is a blood clot in my lung. I'm on lifelong blood thinners, and I've got a relatively common blood clotting disorder called prothrombin 2. But still, that usually doesn't manifest as causing a problem until much later in life. It did with me. I have had cataracts. I've got both of my eyes have been replaced with some of the most advanced artificial lenses that you can get, and I was one of the youngest people in California to ever get them. My body was already falling apart at a relatively young age, and it was clear to me that I needed to make a change. But the first thing was I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like the way I felt. So I decided, like, how do I want to look? I want to look like, I don't know, who looks good? Bodybuilders look good. What do bodybuilders do? So I went to a bodybuilding forum, and what is fat? What is protein? How do you lift weights? Did some of that. Protein builds muscles. Carbs give you energy. Fat is for like vitamin absorption and making hormones. You have a little bit of that, but not too much because it's got a lot of calories in it. And I played with a few different kinds of diets. Gluten-free was like the new thing on the scene. So I, tried gluten-free stuff and ate like a lot of, beans and whatever, sort of the staple foods, and didn't really like that too much. And eventually I found this thing called keto. It was like a section of the nutrition board, and they had all these people losing 100 pounds, and they said they're not hungry and they're not tired. And one thing I think is true is that anybody who's overweight or very overweight or obese or whatever, they've all lost weight. I don't think anybody who's 300 pounds has never lost weight. They've all lost 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds, so they just gained it back. That's the problem. They're all experts in losing 10 or 15 pounds, and they grind through it, and then, one day they stop for whatever reason. Either it's too hard or something happens, whatever, and then it comes right back. But these people are saying, okay, we did this, and we're not hungry, and we're not tired, and, other little things are improving. We're getting more better pain management in our, joints. So we're getting better skin. I said, okay, this sounds kind of neat. I don't know what this is about. It sounds like everybody's going to have a heart attack because, you're not eating fruit, which is the best thing you could possibly eat, right? And I always thought that vegans were the healthiest people in the world, and we would all be healthiest if we only had the willpower to be vegan. If we could just, put on our I don't know, whatever the hell they wear, their burlap sacks and shit, and just sing Kumbaya and be vegan. But so, okay, well, maybe I'll lose some weight and I'll die and I'll leave a good corpse. Fine. So I decided to try it, and this was maybe, this would be like right about when I was 25. So I've been out of college for a couple of years at this point.
So hold on, what's your weight at that time? So like roughly, I'm just curious, what's your weight if you guess, or your waist size or your pants size or whatever it is?
So the biggest I got, I didn't have a scale. I had size 42 pants that were getting tight, and then I'd managed over a couple of years to get down to the size 40s that were fitting correctly. And at that point, I was about 227 pounds was the highest I saw on the scale. Now, the higher weights, I didn't have a scale.
42. Do you mind telling me your height? How high are you?
Yeah, I'm 5'9".
5'9". Okay, so you're
Yeah.
5'9", 42-inch waist. I mean, this is you're showing the signs of metabolic syndrome there with a big waist circumference. Sounds like you had high blood pressure, other medical issues, maybe sleep apnea. I mean, you were not in a good place. What motivated you? Like, I'm just trying to understand. All right, you're 25, you're an engineer. You could be like, playing video games and, drinking, lemonade seltzer or whatever, twisted iced tea. So what is pushing this guy to make a change? You went into bodybuilding, you're doing all this research. I mean, what is driving that person?
I had, throughout college, put a lot of, I'm a very extrovert person, and I had put a lot of my sort of relationship building on hold. I was involved in a very toxic relationship for a while when I was younger, and I put a lot of that on hold for a while. And I didn't really feel confident in myself to want to like go out and meet people and date people and build relationships and do these things because I didn't really like the way I looked, and I felt like I should kind of maybe work on myself. I mean, there's sort of that meme like, oh, you gotta love yourself first, but really I kind of wanted to look good so that I could have that level of vanity. I could dress the way that I wanted. I could go places that I wanted.
Kardashian. And he calls me Dr. He's like, I wanted to look at.
I
was a nerdy engineer, and I wanted to get laid. That's what motivated. No, I'm just teasing that.
Okay, honestly, yes, that was part of it. But I just also wanted to I didn't like looking in the mirror and really just kind of be grossed out by what I saw. I had this big,
I get it. You didn't feel good
looking belly. Yeah,
you didn't look
I didn't
good.
look good.
You
I
didn't
didn't
feel good. Yeah. Your health was, you had some risky, healthy things where you couldn't compromise on any level, and you turned inward. And that kind of, so did you start like the bro science, chicken and broccoli thing? And how did you start?
I did a lot of that. I did at least for a while. I did the sort of regular bodybuilding diet. There was actually I think it was probably originating from 4chan or something, with this very crude diagram of here's what you basically eat, and here's what you don't eat. And it was, I'd call it a whole foods-ish diet. You're getting whole grain bread and rice and broccoli and chicken and that kind of stuff. And your nuts and seeds and that stuff is where your fats come from. And maybe get a little bit of don't put butter on everything. Don't get eggs. And
sounds like a paleo-ish kind of low-fat-ish thing.
It's the way people were sort of. It was a very much I'll say a food pyramid sort of thing. I mean, nobody actually goes and thinks you're supposed to be eating Oreos. Everybody knows you're not supposed to eat Oreos. So it's like, okay, well, instead of eating Oreos, maybe eat some dark chocolate and whatever. And I did that. It was like, okay, it's working, but I have to count all these calories, and I'm tired, I'm hungry. And then, like I said, I stumbled across this keto thing, and it seemed to sort of at least for a lot of people, be addressing these issues of hunger and tired that I was not really keen on. I figured, if I'm hungry all the time, am I just going to be hungry for the rest of my life? That sounds kind of shitty. So I decided to try it. And I mean, instantly, it's my body was like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. Your body likes this. Keep doing this. Because in the first month, for one, 20 pounds gone. Boom. Instantly, all my clothes fit better. Instantly. I had more energy at the gym. When I was working out initially, I do the sort of the bodybuilding splits, and eventually I got into the heavier compound starting strength kind of lifting, which I really seem to enjoy and works well for me. But I would be completely gassed after just the first half of the workout, and usually have to call it quits early and go home. Very quickly after removing the starches and sugars from my diet, and this was, I mean, not even the best low carb diet. It was basically chicken and broccoli and cream cheese was basically sort of my a lot of pickled jalapenos for some reason. This is basically all I ate.
Salt craving, right? The salt craving is real, huh?
Yeah, salt craving's real, I guess. Yeah, pickles and olives too. A lot of that stuff. Yeah. And we had a Smart and Final right around the corner for me, so I get the giant, the 64-ounce jars of these things, and just mow through them.
So you felt good, so now you added fat, lowered carbs further, and you were like, wow, the switch is on.
Yeah,
now.
Yeah, and it was very quick.
Did you drag for a bit? Did you drag for a bit, or it was
I never got the whole keto flu thing. That never really happened to me. I think that's probably because I've never really been afraid of salt. I've always really liked salty things and just sort of had a craving for salt. I would sit down and eat as a snack and eat a jar of pickles. I remember very distinctly I was playing video games one time and I killed a little 20-ounce jar of the pickles for years. And it didn't feel too good afterwards, but I mean, there was nothing in my body that told me like, oh yeah, you've had enough pickles, just stop eating pickles. Nope. So, after this sort of 1 month experiment, I said, okay, there's something to this. And I decided I wanted to learn more about it because it's so opposite of what I'd learned. Especially like, I had to take basic nutrition science. I had to take organic chemistry. I learned what a ketone was because I took organic chemistry, but I didn't know like what they were, like what they do in the body, who knows? So I started reading like everything I could get my hands on. I read, the Gary Taubes books that were out at the time. I read Jimmy Moore. I read some Perlmutter, and started reading blogs and listening to podcasts. And
who was the biggest influence on you keeping this? If you look back and it sounds like you were kind of headstrong and you wanted to change, and it was like a perfect time. But who would, if you had to pick all those people and all those influences in these past 10 years, what would you say really like clinched it for you mentally to keep going?
I can't really point to any person. I think that it's just whenever I tried to do something different, it didn't work as well.
So there's a fact that you just personal experience, it didn't, there was something to it.
Yeah, it's like, if somebody says, oh, you've got 11 fingers, I look at my hands, I go, no, I don't have 10 fingers. My experience is going to, even if they got peer-reviewed studies that say I've got 11 fingers, no, I don't. I can look at the results that I've gotten, and I can say this, I don't necessarily know why it works. I don't particularly care why it works, but it seems to be working for me. And of course, I became like every other person new on keto. I became this horrible evangelist, annoying, I'm sure, to everybody. So everybody who's listening to this who knew me from about 26 to about 29, I apologize. But I was really like, I found it. I figured it out. I found it. And like I still had the lingering problems. You're not going to fix nerve damage.
So you were like a vegan.
Yeah, I was like.
So you were vegan for 5 years in spirit.
Yeah, I definitely was, and it's a very dark time.
What did the people cared about you say? I mean, there must have been people, family members, seeing you kind of lose weight, you're getting healthier. Are they just so annoyed because you're evangelizing them, or are there people like actually happy for you? And what's going on in that department?
Well, I had kind of two sides to it, right? Because I had a career shift happen halfway through that, and so I had all the people in my past that knew me as being this sort of jovial but unhealthy guy, and they were very happy to see me get happy. I didn't have any enemies until I got Twitter, so I'm actually a pretty well-liked guy in my own sort of circle of people. After that, they didn't know me. Yeah, now they're trying to cancel me. Try it! I'll get another account. I'll come at you from all angles. You fuck! But we're gonna table that and talk about where we got from there on out. Because I became, and it was very surprising to me that I became, from the perspective of everybody in my life from that point on, the health guy, the fitness guy. And in my own mind, especially like my own vision of myself, that's not who I was, right? I'd see videos, of like parties and stuff, and somebody would turn around and it would be me. And I'd be like, oh my God, that's what I look like now. I'm not the big round guy. I have a man's shape now. I have the taper. I have, I don't have like rolls on my wrist from the fat coming over my hand. I don't have the big double chin anymore. It's like, in my mind, even now, I still kind of like, that's kind of what I look like, but it's not. I remember looking at, like trying to learn how to like dress, because I was, I had the engineer's dress of, like a polo shirt and, baggy jeans and stuff, cargo shorts. But I was looking like,
pocket protector or no?
No pocket protector.
No, I was thinking the same thing.
Not Massachusetts engineer, different breed.
So what about before? What about like growing up? Did you have a tendency to get? So I get like high school, college. You're a little bit more nerdier. You're doing organic chemistry. You're not. I'm sure you're not signing up to be the scholarship athlete. But what was going on? Did you have a proclivity to gain weight in high school, or what was going on then?
I did, but like I said, I was also pretty active in high school. I did. Hey guys, I was a break dancer, believe it or not, and I was actually in pretty good shape and pretty strong from that in high school. And let's also remember, I was born in 1985, so this is well after breakdancing was cool. This is no longer cool at this point, but I still did it.
Did you do the moonwalk too, man?
Could you do the
I'll
moonwalk?
believe it. Oh, all day.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah,
You have to show us.
moonwalk into the office every morning.
I don't believe him, Brian.
You'll never know what to believe. You'll never know what to believe. What is real?
I'm trying to trigger him to
The
actually do
spinning.
it.
This is awesome, man. We're gonna have a little concert here. We're stoked.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have at the next Carnivore Con or whatever, we'll have a little dance off, and I'll just blow all your doors off. But so I actually remained in good shape, but my diet was still trash. I think the thing I've always struggled with is I have a very strong sweet tooth, and a love of like packaged cookies. And I've talked a lot about like packaged garbage, and the thing that clicked with me is that it's not special, but there's still that sense memory of having them when you were a kid, right? You still had you come home from school and you have your Oreos and your milk and you watch your cartoons before you start your homework, or you've got your Chips Ahoy or whatever, your big bowl of I love Cookie Crisp as a concept, because it's like it's a bowl of cookies. There you go, enjoy it. So I ate a lot of that stuff. I just, you say you can in fact outrun a bad diet for a period of time, and I did. Especially, when you're only, your late teens. You've got all the hormones going to the right place, and you got all the energy in the world, you can burn it off. But that doesn't really necessarily carry you, through your 30s. So that's sort of, up to that point. I mean, and then before that, I did martial arts and stuff. I was going to karate class and stuff, and I was pretty active there too. But again, sugar, love sugar. I mean, people say, oh, it's a sugar and fat thing that's addictive. You don't just eat spoonfuls of sugar out of the sugar jar. Well, I did, much to my parents' disappointment. Yeah, they eat sugar straight up the sugar jar, particularly the brown sugar.
Anybody
Big
in the
fan of that.
family have weight issues?
My dad was overweight, and I think most of his family going back had dealt with, not like to the point of disability or anything, but they were all, well over 200 pounds.
So this is kind of in the cards, like the minute that you could have predicted, okay, there's a little bit of obesity in the family. You love sugar. Mm-hmm. He's going to give up, all this breakdancing and martial arts to go to college, and he's going to be an engineer. He's going to be stuck in the books. You you could have predicted this would happen, and then you kind of go against the grain. But you know what told me you're going to be successful? You got your dietary advice from 4chan. Right?
Yeah, I mean. There's diamonds in the rough in all places on the internet. Like Reddit is largely a trash heap too now. I think Reddit has taken over where 4chan once dominated, but and it's largely just an absolute dumpster fire. But there are some gems in there too.
Just so everybody who's listening understands, if you're on 4chan back then was like a conspiracy-ish, like a computer science junkie chat board, right? Yeah. Maybe hackers mixed in. Maybe Assange mixed in and WikiLeaks mixed in and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, I haven't actually been there in years, but from what all I can understand is it's all furry porn now. So it's not really current. I mean, in my normal worldview of what I find interesting these days, so I haven't bothered with it. But I mean, actually, believe it or not, there was a fitness board on there that was pretty decent. For a while. There was a lot of no-nonsense stuff. They weren't necessarily pro-keto or anti-keto, but they did have some decent advice as far as like how workouts should be structured. And it's sort of where I initially stumbled across the idea of starting strength and compound lifts. You don't just do bicep curls all day to actually get in shape. And you can't spot lose fat.
I mean, it sounds like you were just already, you're a critical thinker. You're thinking outside of the box. You're not jumping to do what the mainstream says, and then you self-experimented and you hit the jackpot.
Yeah. I did, and a lot of it stems from this idea that by any measure, I am pretty stupid, and I recognize that by saying there's probably a lot of stuff I don't know, and the stuff that I think I know, I might be wrong about, right? So, what if I'm wrong about nutrition? What if quinoa and juice cleanses are not the right way to health? What if, chicken and bacon and eggs and, skipping breakfast is the right way to health? What if that's actually what I should be doing? Well, I tried it and it worked. And, kind of along my way, I've tried a few different things to say, well, maybe that first, experiment in keto was not the most optimal way. Maybe we try this high, they say, well, maybe meat's inflammatory. Try something that's maybe lower in the meat, higher in things like nuts and seeds and coconut and all that kind of stuff, and try that and see how that works. Well, that didn't really seem to work that well. Or maybe something where you cut out a lot of plants and mainly eat meat is a better way of doing it. And I tried that, and that seemed to work very well for me. And then there's, other people that come out, well, they say, well, it's not about the fat or the meat or the plants, but it's about the kind of fat. You need to have higher long chain fatty acids. And I tried that, and that really didn't seem to work for me. And, I tried these different experiments, and I just kind of see where they go. And I've got this sort of baseline diet. It's heavy in meat, high in protein, has some vegetables in it, but vegetables aren't really the background. And I don't really think that they're doing anything magical for me. I just, there's certain vegetables that I like and I enjoy cooking. And that's sort of the baseline. I can deviate from that and try something. And if it moves me in the right direction, yeah, we'll keep going that way. But if it doesn't, I can come back to where I know works, and I can stick with that. So that's sort of given me just sort of this, playbook that I can goof around with, and a nice template that has brought me to what I think is a very sustainable method of health. And I'm here at, the tail end of at least this pandemic. We'll see what happens in the next one. But I managed to be weight stable throughout the whole thing, even though I couldn't go to the gym because they were closed. Even though for a good long while, there was a lot of food that I couldn't get. I mean, it was weird going to the store and like, they don't have eggs, they don't have chicken, it's like, what do you get, you got some mozzarella cheese sticks and
you could get Beyond Meat. You could get Beyond Meat that was still sitting there.
Oh yeah, nobody wanted that. I'll never forget, there was like a thing in Texas, they were getting hit with a hurricane or something, and all the shelves are empty except the vegan meat section, because you cannot get Texas to eat vegan meat. So, God bless Texas, right? Despite my constant shitting on Texas on Twitter, it's all in fun. But yeah, I thought that was funny. It's like you can't just pay people as they get. They'd rather starve.
So, how does it now? So now you've lost a lot of weight. You evangelized a lot of people. You're, but then you kind of calm down. Now you're in your career and you get married. You have a kid. And what does wifey say about you eating mainly meat? And what do other parents say when they see how you're eating at the birthday parties when you're not eating you know what I mean? Like, so how does that look like? What do the workplace people say?
Well, there's a couple times where I've done some bizarre shit, right? And some people were I got a couple of sideways glances. Like, I used to keep at the old office. We recently moved to a new place. I used to have a warehouse facility. Don't have one anymore. But I had a hot plate back there, and I'd cook a steak every so often. And they'd be like, "Are you cooking a steak for lunch?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they just thought that was rather bizarre, because it's like, well, there's the Burger King right there. You just go to the Burger King. And I'm like, well, they don't have steak at Burger King. There was a time I was doing a raw meat experiment, and they had the beef bottom round on sale at the local Mexican market. It's already shredded up for like carne asada and tacos and stuff. So I just took that and salted, and I was eating it like a salad out of a bowl. And my coworker's like, "Are you just eating a bowl of raw meat?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Did he just shook his head?" So that was fun. Right now, though, we've got there's a vegetarian in the office, and whatever, it's working for her. I'm fine with it. She's not evangelical about it. I'm not. I don't. I have respect. It's like, okay, I don't necessarily need to be mocking her by eating meat raw out of a bowl with a fork. But typically, I skip lunch anyway because I'm not generally that hungry. But I think that people, at least in this area, the idea of low carb and eating good meat is not like a new concept. I think if you get outside of maybe more metropolitan areas, it's people think, well, you got to have your potatoes with your meat, right? You have meat and potatoes. You have your sandwich. How do you eat if you don't eat sandwiches?
You're in the like the San Jose Valley. You're in San Jose, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I work in San Jose. I live a little bit further north, up near Oakland. And I think people around here, a lot
Yeah,
of
they do all sorts of the
bizarre,
biohackers, and they do all sorts of weird
yeah.
stuff. And there's
And you got the tech bros in San
pescatarians,
Francisco. Yeah, the tech bros in San Francisco microdosing psilocybin and LSD and stuff and whatever. I mean, so a lot of stuff is kind of accepted, even if it seems kind of bizarre, like, you know, people doing different
What
cleanses
about
or
people
different.
that care about you, like real, like not just coworkers? What about like the missus and the, you know, and the, you know, or what about, you know, whoever, you know?
Yeah, well, anybody who sees me sees somebody who's healthy, and even if they don't understand necessarily what I'm doing, they can pretty much see that it's working for me. And I've toned down, like I said, on my evangelical nature about low carb diets, but I'm always very open. It's like, look, what I do works very well for me, and if you're interested in doing what I do and doing it my way, I'm more than happy to help you, because I think I made a lot of mistakes earlier on, particularly with you know, things like Quest bars and some of these more processed food items that I don't think necessarily are a good idea to have as the backbone of the diet. I had a lot. I mean, I had a pretty good amount of success eating a lot of like keto cheesecakes and cookies and stuff, at least at the beginning, because I don't think they're good. I just think they're better than, you know, say they're sugar-laden, highly processed alternatives. And so, I mean, I've had a lot of people in this career and in my previous career that said, "Oh, we'll give this a shot," and they found out it worked pretty well for them too. I think that the idea, at least in my circle of friends, that you know, meat or even meat heavy diets, or the cholesterol in the diet is necessarily the cause of modern disease, I think they can kind of look at that and go, well, didn't we used to hunt like big animals and we drew them on our cave walls like millions of years ago? And shouldn't we have adapted to that by now? Like, this is not like we just started eating meat 100 years ago when all the heart attacks started. And they say, okay, that's probably more like, you know, your Oreos and your margarine and your highly processed garbage. It's really causing this stuff. I think most people in their heart of hearts know that, unless they're, we'll say influenced by certain organizations. And you know, you could look at somebody and generally tell if they're unhealthy, right? And it'd be very hard to look at me and say that I am unhealthy. So I think I get a little bit of leeway from that, and I think that I'm you know, lucky to live in a place where people tend to at least have an open mind about those sorts of things.
So you said you along the way you learned, I'm sure Brian's also kind of like interested to hear this. As you progressed, you kind of got rid of the keto processed foods, you know, and you found that maybe initially it was helpful, but then later on definitely not helpful. What else did you learn along the way? You know, what would be like the key? You know, did you have any major trials, major tribulations, or things that you thought were fairly profound that you know now that you wish you knew when you first were starting?
Yeah, kind of. I thought that to be satisfied after a meal, you had to have a physical fullness, like a certain volume of food. So a lot of my, even my whole food forays into the keto sort of thing were, you know, like these large punch bowl salads and stuff. You know, it had, you know, it'd be, you know, I don't know, 60 calories worth of lettuce, but it'd be, you know, this much lettuce. And eventually I realized this was the cause of, you know, my not uncommon stomach problems, you know, either gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, kind of, you know, go around in that circle. And when I cut way down on that, especially if I cut down on raw vegetables or raw plants of any kind, it just went away. And I was like, wow. And then I've also realized that a smaller meal does not make me less satisfied or satisfied for less time. You know, when I first started when I first tried my like strict carnivore thing, that was what I was worried about. I was like, I need to have volume. How do I have volume? You know, do I eat a bunch of egg whites? Maybe that's a pretty good volume without a whole lot of calories in it. But then, you know, I had, you know, instead of having a steak and a pound of broccoli, I just have a steak. And I sit down after my steak, I just sit there for a minute and let everything sort of just like congeal in my stomach, whatever's going on down there. I'm not a gastroenterologist or whatever, but whatever's happening. And I just go, I'm good. And then hours later, I still go, I'm still good. What was that lettuce doing for me? What benefit was I getting from that? And I realized really none, because I didn't enjoy it. There's other vegetables. I mean, I like, you know, roasted cauliflower and things. I think they're inherently just delicious. That's why I like them. I enjoy them, and I tolerate them well. You know, and I don't have them in gigantic quantities. I have them in small quantities. But yeah, the whole like volume eating thing not actually causing more satiety was one of the most surprising things that I'd ever found.
Yeah, Dan, Dan, what I love about what you're doing is you're saying, look, let me experiment on myself and see what happens.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I give Tom giving a talk at Low Carb USA in San Diego, right down the street. One size fits one. What works for you? Who cares what everyone else is doing? I think we get so caught up, and you know, like there's carnivores say, well, if you eat a broccoli, then you're not a carnivore anymore, and you get kicked out of the tribe. You know, and there's some people who go, look, you like broccoli, have broccoli. Have if you like avocado every once in a while, go for it, right? So I think there's a lot of people say I have more satiety when I have some broccoli with my meat, and I feel good, and my energy is good, and my diabetes is gone. Okay, cool, right? So I think it's that figuring out what works for you. Ultimately, if you get gas and diarrhea every time you eat certain foods, you go, okay, I'm not going to eat that, right?
Yeah, and you know, I think that there's also a lot of times I've maybe misattributed things, right? I think that, oh, I had this thing with so much fat in it, that's why I don't feel good, and I realized it wasn't because it was the fat, it was because I had it with kale, or because I had it with nuts, or you know, these other things that maybe I thought were innocuous, and they really weren't. You know, I used to be a big fan of coconut oil, put coconut oil on everything because, you know, coconut oil, MCTs, yada yada, the magic keto stuff. And I realized I do better with, you know, butter or just whatever fat happens to be in the food if I'm cooking it. It just works better, and it's free, which is nice. If you're just cooking with the, you know, fat that came on your food. And you know, I think that it's important to not get locked into these tribes. You know, I still regard myself as a carnivore, but I'm not on the carnivore diet because I don't look at vegetables as food. You know, they are accompaniments to the food. In the same way, I don't regard pepper or salt as food. They are accompaniments to the food. You need you know, we have evolved to require the nutrients that are in meat. You say we didn't evolve to eat meat. We evolved to need the nutrients that are in meat. So, you know, we got tools to be able to do that. And everything else that comes with it. I mean, do you think that the you know, ancient man would have spent any kind of energy getting a plant that needs to be cooked and has no calories in it? No, we wouldn't have wasted our time doing that. I mean, we got some seasonings, we got some medicinal plants and things like that. And the whole idea that vegetables and salads and everything else are good for you, it doesn't go back more than a couple hundred years. This is all very new concepts. I mean, one of my old hobbies was to look at like old cookbooks. You know, I love like Great British Bake Off, and there's a couple of these things called what's it called? Castle Cooking or something like that. It was a British TV show where they go to like these old castles and they cook these menus, you know, from back in the 1700s and stuff. And you know what they don't have? Salad. They don't have salad. Why?
But you saw the cave drawings. There's a lot of cave drawings with asparagus and cabbage, right, Tro?
Yeah, no, you're
everywhere.
absolutely right. I think, you know, there are ancient, look, we always use plants both medicinally. We've used plants, if you look in the historical context, for certain micronutrients, like cacao is one of those that's, you know, we have at least 5,000 years of data supporting its use. They've found bread at least 10,000 years old. And like, so, you know, we're smart humans. We know how to extract energy, right? I mean, that's basically it. If something has a nutritional value, we'll get it. I absolutely agree with you that a salad is probably only beneficial in what it displaces, right? There's no inherent magic to the salad. It's not like we've literally given people phytonutrients. We've literally given people, you know, the Faith DM trial took diabetics and gave them fruits, vegetables, and whole grains and measured their outcomes in diabetes, and it did nothing. Right. So these, you know, the antioxidants and the vitamins, I don't think they do anything. It just displaces something that's probably worse for us.
Yeah, and we also have this effect of the health halo, right? And I think that's a very dangerous like fallacy that people have, where, you know, I did really good by eating this, you know, virtuous food, and that offsets me eating this non-virtuous food, right? You know, I had a salad for lunch, therefore I can have, you know, a bowl of, you know, Cookie Crisp for dinner or whatever. Or, you know, I finished my Or you got to finish your broccoli or you can't have dessert. That I think is a dangerous mindset that people get into, thinking that adding these things to the diet is inherently beneficial. And it also ignores the idea that, okay, your cow or your sheep or your chicken, they have teeth and claws and beaks, and they have feet that they can use to run away, and your plants don't. And the defense chemicals that are in the plants that we farm are probably reduced considerably from what we would find in nature. I mean, broccoli doesn't exist in nature. Wheat, as we consume it, does not exist in nature. These are things that we invented and cultivated over the last several thousand years, but they're still there. I mean, in the same way that we still have, canines and fingernails, even though we don't have claws and fangs. We need to acknowledge that there may be some people who are very sensitive to those things, and the virtue and the harmlessness that we promote with these plants may not be universally applicable, right? And the vitamins that are in them may not be totally bioavailable to people. People say beta carotene, here's your vitamins. You can't do anything with beta carotene. You got to convert that to retinol, and not everybody can do that to the same level. So, it again comes down to the idea that a lot of people think that there is one universal truth for all people, and if they understand that one particular truth, they are right on everything forever. Amen. And acknowledge you might be wrong, and that's what I did. It worked out really good for me up to this point. In terms of health, in terms of moral and ethical standing, in terms of religious standing, and I mean, it all worked out great for me just by saying, what if? And here I am.
I think one of the things that's important is not all people, everybody can't eat everything, right? We have, there are people with gluten insensitivities. There are people, who have been exposed to, refined carbohydrates much longer. I mean, look at what's happening in the Asian, sub-Asian, Japanese populations, right? They were just never exposed to, sugar and refined carbohydrates and really oil, right, of any kind. And now all of a sudden, in the past 30 years, it's like diabetes is rampant there. So I just put
up an interesting post, and I don't know if you saw it a couple of weeks ago about India. And India always, to me, is an interesting case because we've got 1 billion people, billion plus people, and the lowest meat consumption per capita on the planet, right? And so a very different lifestyle than America and a lot of other places in the world, particularly given India is very poor, but it's not as poor as some other places. So you have some, every place that is anywhere near as poor as India eats way more meat. So it provides this interesting case study. And one thing that I was able to find is that, okay, in India, you have a diabetes rate that's actually pretty close to the United States. They're both around 30% in the diabetes and prediabetes rate. I think it's like 30.8 for the United States, 30.6 for India, pretty close. Obesity rate in the United States, it's like 35%, right? Obesity rate in India, 3%. Why are they getting diabetes at such a higher rate, given the relative body weight? Why does everybody in the West, or is it because they eat meat? Is it genetic? Is it something else entirely? Is it sun exposure? Is it the pollution? Who knows? But you've got this interesting thing where you say, okay, fat people get diabetes. It's like, well, everybody in India gets diabetes before they get fat. Why is that?
No, fat is actually protective of diabetes. Fat is a protector.
Subcutaneous
fat.
And
that's a theory I like a lot of. That's a theory I like a lot too.
It's true. I mean, when you look at the data, that's what we see.
You get more visceral fat. If you do, we've seen in people who get liposuction where we take out, so they get more visceral fat.
Yeah, it's funny.
Fat goes up.
And I had this discussion with Andy Fung. We were talking about it because he's of Asian descent. He had diabetes at a relatively lightweight also. But he says there's no survival benefit if you're in an Asian country or India where it's hot and humid and miserable. If you get subcutaneous fat, you're right, it's a problem. It's a detriment, right? You die of heat exhaustion. But in the U.S. and the northern climates where there's a benefit to being fat that you stay warm in the winter with subcutaneous fat. But as that subcutaneous fat runs out, after this personal fat threshold, as you run up, trust me, I'm seeing this in my clinic weekly now.
Can you explain Polynesian populations? Now I know really, you've got a fairly high rate of diabetes, but
yeah,
but
and if you
also the obesity rate is also very high there.
Yeah, and if you look at the Samoans, these guys could be 300, 400 pounds and they're not getting diabetes. They have a lot of subcutaneous fat. So with us, Tro and I have, ways of looking at subcutaneous versus visceral fat. So I have a lady, she's 290 pounds and her visceral fat is 0.8 liters. Her insulin's, and you can predict what the labs are going to look like by what their visceral fat is. And I can predict what their visceral fat's going to be by their laboratories. So there's people who are morbidly obese that are metabolically healthy. Tro sees it too. And so there's other people that look great. They could look like you and their insulin's through the roof and their visceral fat's really high, And so it really is a
my question
genetic.
then is what is actually the trigger for that? Is that completely genetic or is that environmental?
Genetic.
Because
yeah, it's just like if you
is that known? Is that known?
Yeah, we do know that. We do we do know to a certain extent that the expression of obesity is genetically. Look, let's say you backed out environment for a second. Let's just pretend you took out all environmental triggers. Let's say we were observing grizzly bears in their natural environments, right? The ones that are, have the genes that promote adiposity, which probably is about 60% of the expressed adiposity, the phenotype, right? When they do like twin pair genetic comparisons, right? When they do stuff where they compare the outcomes of twins that are separated, there is the component of obesity that's genetic is 60%. So if you back out all environmental triggers, right, it is the genes that decide who gets the most fat, right? And whatever is affecting those genes.
And it's complicated. There's a lot of other factors. It's like, look at India, their rates are going up like crazy. And we've actually interviewed a couple of Indian doctors talking about that, where if they switch back to butter from margarine, diabetes rate drops, heart attack rate drops, right? And so you could get them to having, because someone just asked me that the other day, is like, how come in Mexico, they've always eaten beans and rice and tortillas and they were never fat before? Now, why are they fat? Well, now you got soda on every corner. Now you got all these junk foods and all these things that you would add to that. Now you overwhelm the system. Now what do you do with that extra energy? You store it as visceral fat, right? If you can't
I'd be interested to see as a subset, because, okay, Japan, very low rates of diabetes, very low rates of obesity, but there are sumo wrestlers. What does their blood work look like?
Yeah, there's interesting. I used to have details on it. I can't recall what it was, but they seem to store more subcutaneous fat than visceral fat. I think that was a surprising thing.
I got into I get these weird little rabbit holes that I go down, and I've seen a lot of I kind of just sumo wrestling for a while, and not like doing it, of course, but just like being fascinated by the culture of it and the particularly the cheating scandals and all that fun stuff, which is a great rabbit hole if you ever want to go down that. But yeah, they're all they don't have the big hard bellies like you'd see maybe American pro wrestlers would have that are very big. They have these big hard bellies. They've got this very like soft layer of fat all over their bellies, which I always thought was kind of interesting. It kind of did also jive with the idea that subcutaneous fat is not necessarily as unhealthy as visceral fat. But I've never seen data on it. Just as one of those questions that popped into my mind, like,
no, that's the one thing that's come up with me for the last year. I've been looking at it because I see people with a lot of visceral fat have trouble losing weight. And you go, why is that? Well, the visceral fat becomes dysfunctional. Now you can't break it down as quickly. Now it takes time. Now you got to put on muscle mass because visceral fat is inhibiting muscle mass. So the biggest kiss of death is having skinny arms and legs, and this is documented, and a big belly. Like they go, oh, look, he just has a beer belly. He's fine. Look, he's skinny. Otherwise, no, you'd rather be fat everywhere.
You see pictures of Grieger, right?
Yeah, I mean,
they look like Humpty Dumpty now. I don't know what the deal is going on there.
Well, here's the thing with the sumo wrestlers. I just was remembering some of the data that I have to pull the exact studies, but I remember seeing data showing that while they're sumo wrestling, they're typically metabolically healthy, right? While they're sumo wrestling, their numbers, are generally lower triglycerides, higher HDL, but they quickly, once they end their careers, go to terrible disease, right? Terrible disease. Right. I mean, like they have no reserve and if they keep eating the way they're eating, I think it's just a matter of time. Right. So I think it's like a ticking time bomb situation. My interpretation of that literature. But I know that, they typically have higher lean mass and lower visceral fat in general. But like once their active lifestyle is done, once they stop moving, right? Their training decreases, they quickly deteriorate in health, like very quickly.
Interesting. Yeah. These are
Well, that's a
always questions.
great way to,
I always wonder,
great way
like,
to
what?
bore the conversation, you know.
Yeah.
Great way to. No, but anyway, so where are you now? Where is your diet at now? And you know, to switch gears a bit.
Right now, it's I don't count anything. I don't measure anything. I eat to satiety, and I eat when I'm hungry. I generally will have meat and some kind of vegetable. In the vegetable, if I kind of feel like it, I'll usually have 1 to 2 meals a day. Maybe something around like 3 or 4 o'clock, and I have dinner around 6, and that does me just fine. But I've noticed also, sometimes I just, maybe have a bad night's sleep. I end up getting hungry earlier in the day, and I don't fight it. I don't like to white knuckle my way through hunger. I figure there's probably a good reason. And my body's usually not craving necessarily like junk food. It's like, go eat that chicken breast. I say, okay, I'll go eat that chicken breast. Or I'll go eat that leftover piece of steak or whatever's sitting in the fridge. And it's just, it works for me. I seem to be relatively weight stable. I've been, started working out again. I built a little nano gym in my garage. I figure that any kind of additional hunger that I might be having is because, well, I'm actually using my body again. So I might as well feed it everything that it needs to rebuild itself. I have no idea how many calories it is, how many grams of protein. It's probably a lot. I don't tend to go with like really super fatty things. It's mainly leaner cuts of pork, chicken, and beef. But I'd say, at least probably in the neighborhood of 200 grams of protein a day and 2,000 to 3,000 calories, depending upon how hungry I am. Just, eyeballing it.
The last cry, I'm yapping away here, and Brian's like probably biting his tongue so much. But I'm just curious. How does your kid eat? How does that trickle down to your son?
I cook almost everything in this house for both me and my wife and my baby. He eats very, very little packaged food. And he will eat whatever we're eating for dinner. So I'll mix him, usually a meat, a vegetable side, and I'll give him a starch. And most of the time, it'll be like an unprocessed starch. It'll be a white rice or something. And most of the time, he just doesn't eat it. He doesn't seem to like it. But he'll always eat his eggs. He'll always eat his meat. He'll generally eat his vegetable if there's enough butter on it. We've exposed him to sweet things. He'll have his birthday parties and stuff at his daycare. He doesn't really seem to like the sweet stuff at all. We'll have some yogurt. We'll mix just some fresh berries into the yogurt. He sometimes eats that, sometimes doesn't. But yeah, he always, actually just yesterday, we were playing, and he's just up from his nap. He had his milk. And he tugs on my pants and goes, "Daddy, meat." so we run to the kitchen. I got these they're like Archer Farms or something. Real nice. I hate the word clean, but we'll say clean ingredients, no bullshit. Like beef jerky sticks, sausage sticks, and he ate one of those. But he eats not so different than what we do. Just with a little bit of added starch, just because why not? I don't think he should. If he's going to be exposed to it, he should not have an intolerance to it. But he doesn't eat anything that's really heavily processed, and he's grown like a weed. He's 6 months ahead of all of his milestones. He's as big as the kids that are 6 or 8 months older than him. So nobody's complaining.
Yeah, that's awesome, because you don't want to be too restrictive, and I think that's one of the things we hear a lot is it's too restrictive and it's not sustainable. You've been doing it for 10 years, so I think you would argue that point.
Yeah, well, also one of the things is that I do keto of some description pretty much all the time, except for special occasions that it's actually worth it. Like if I'm going to go for an anniversary meal, or I'm going on vacation, or I'm going to have a birthday, and there's something special that I can't really just have every day, I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to just say, okay, I might be a little bit tired, I might be hungry, whatever, but I'm going to enjoy this thing. But I don't want to raise a child that has a fear of a food. I just want them to understand. Right now, he's not really at the point where he's going to be able to understand these things, but I want him to look at food the way I look at food, which is eat whatever you want, but understand how you're going to feel and understand what that's going to do to you when you eat it. Okay, you want to eat 14 peanut butter cups after your Halloween thing? I don't think you should, but let's see what happens if you do. Oh, you don't feel so good now, do you? What did you learn? So that, I mean, that's kind of how we're going to approach it, especially as he gets older. But yeah, I don't want him to be weird about food. And that was one of the things that, you know, my wife and I had discussed is like, I want him to have a healthy relationship with food by understanding what food is and what it's for and what it does.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I 100% agree. I have 3 kids, 9, 7, and 5. And I want them to understand, you know, what it is this food does to them. I don't want them to go to a birthday party and sit there and they're the only ones not eating a slice of pizza. You know,
Yeah.
I want them to understand, why is there a pizza restaurant? There's about 10 pizza restaurants in a 2-mile vicinity of us. Why is there 5
'Cause
fast
you're in
food
New York.
restaurants? Yeah, why are there 5 fast food restaurants in a 2-mile vicinity? Why does that happen? Why is there 5 ice cream places in a 2-mile vicinity, right? I want them to understand, what is it that drives that, right? And why is it that they have 1 slice of pizza or 2 slices of pizza and find themselves to keep eating? As long as they understand it, then it's like, then they have the power. Then they get to choose, you know, am I going to this type of food? But I don't want them to sit there. You know, my kid's in camp right now. And my wife's like, you know, they made funnel cake. And in fact, the principal who I've, you know, sent derogatory emails saying this is insane what you guys give to our kids. You know, for the funnel cakes and cookies and donuts, they literally had during the middle of a pandemic, had a Krispy Kreme fundraiser. I told them I would donate almond flour based desserts to the entire school if they stopped the Krispy Kreme fundraiser, and nobody took me up on that. But you know, the principal came up to me and was like, yeah, you're not going to believe what we gave them yesterday. We gave them funnel cakes. And I was like, great, that's fine. You know, my son ate it. Yeah, I'm happy. You know, he gets to enjoy it. I would never want him to sit there and be excluded. You know, but just the systems that we present them to, you know.
If it's special, it's okay. You know, I'm gonna be controversial probably in my approach to my child in like for things like drugs and alcohol. It's like, are they good or are they bad? They're not either. They just have effects on your body, some things that you may not want. Okay? It's like, you know, why is there, you know, beer commercials? Well, you know, people like the way beer makes them feel, but, you know, look at, you know, we pass by that guy under the freeway every day. He liked beer too much. That's what can happen. So you got to make choices, right? You got to be intelligent about what you're doing to your body because you only get one. And, you know, I'm lucky that I made changes to my body and recognized that I could turn things around. I feel like if I waited another 10 years, if I didn't, you know, wrap my car around a tree, I may have done, you know, completely permanent damage. I might be full-blown diabetic on, you know, all these pills and medicines and everything else. I may not have had the energy and drive to be able to get to a career that gives me good health insurance. I might be one of these people paying, you know, $1,800, $2,800 a month in insulin or whatever. You know, the price is just completely spiraling out of control on that stuff. You know, probably a good idea to own some stock in pharmaceutical companies right now. But, you know, I was able to turn that around and that's just as a, you know, by pure luck, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like, we don't want, like, there have been bakers for thousands of years. We've made bread for 10,000 years. These are food. They are not like negative things, but we're in a constant environment.
But we've changed it, Trove. You're talking about 10,000 years ago bread compared to bread now. It's totally different, right? It's totally different manufacturing. It's totally different how we're raising it. You go to Italy. I have patients that they go to Italy, go, hey, I'm in Italy, I'm gonna have pasta. They don't see the sugar spike like they do here with the same amount of pasta. So there's something different. There's something about making homemade food and cooking yourself than trusting someone else to give you, you know, the worst, cheapest flour. You know, you go to most restaurants, they're not gonna put olive oil on your salad. They ain't gonna happen. They can't afford that. Or they have to charge you more for the salad, or they say, you know, and you have problems with bad seed oils, and you know, there's a lot of stuff like that where yes, we've always eaten that way, but you have to look and see did the manufacturing change, right? There's a lot of stuff. Even Coke in Latin America has real sugar in it compared to what we have here with high fructose corn syrup, right?
Here's the thing. I've never had. Give me one second. So here's the thing, right? Grandma, what did she do? You always bring this up. You know, Grandma would literally on the table after Thanksgiving leave the food there, and an hour later she would let everybody pick food. right? She knew what would happen if she left the food on the table. Whatever you didn't need, you go eat. And an hour later, she'd bring the apple pie. And why did she make that apple pie? She didn't want it to waste. They were preserving all those apples. There was a purpose on how they made it and what they did. They knew that they weren't going to have the same food, right? Mm-hmm. But then over the last 50 years, what have all the restaurants done? They've taken that to the nth level. There's a million appetizers and desserts on every single menu, like small plates, so they can sell you more, right? Yep. All these food companies
that's
don't
one of the
care.
Things I thought was interesting was the reduction of satiety when there's novelty in food. I'm sure you've come across a couple studies on this one where like it's basically the buffet effect, where the more different kinds of food you have, the more you want to eat.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of an interesting thing. So grandma, so you're right, Brian, 10,000 years ago, it wasn't the same food and it wasn't the same environment. Like we did things for a different purpose.
And you didn't have it every day. It was like Thanksgiving and you did that. Yep. Then you get back to life. Like you're on vacation. I was on vacation recently, throw it an all-inclusive place. And I saw, like I'd work out with my buddy. We're having a cup of coffee and we were watching people just line up for gelato at 9 in the morning, 8 in the morning, gelato, cookies, because it was there and it was free. And they were just loading up their plate. And you see these people and it's devastating, man. That's like exactly I met guys and they're shooting insulin like 3 times what they normally shoot because they're eating the worst stuff. And they don't go, oh, maybe I should stop eating that.
That food company doesn't care about you. That hotel doesn't care about you. The restaurants don't care about you. Dunkin' Donuts, Sam Adams that is giving free beers to people who are vaccinated doesn't care about you. Krispy Kreme was giving free donuts. They don't care about you. The free Happy Meals from Burger King, the Jack Daniels 2-for-1s. These people don't care about you. Grandma cared about you. I think that's the difference. And when she made that food, she put quality items in there, right? And it wasn't all the time. But these people don't care about you. So I agree with you, Brian. I think it's exactly what you're saying. It's different.
Yep. Yeah, it's
guys,
not special anymore. It's not special. It's not worth it. You know?
Guys, this is
and then like you're saying, if you have it, enjoy it.
Your great grandma ate, you know?
Yeah.
It's like maybe she had one. But I can go into the store in the middle of December and buy a pineapple for $3. And I mean, that's the food environment we live in. Everything is always available all the time, and because of that, you make choices that you would not have made, you know, if you were living 100 years ago. You know, sugar used to be extremely expensive. I mean, that was like one of the most fascinating things I ever learned about like ancient cooking is that carrot cake. The carrots were not there because they added texture or moisture. The carrots were there because they were the sweetest things that English peasants had access to. They didn't have fruit. They didn't have sugar. They didn't have honey. They had carrots. And if you ask somebody to name 10 sweet things now, I guarantee you carrots would not be on that list.
Wow. Yeah. All these changes. It is amazing. And that's why I love Kean Foley. I'm hoping we get him back on and talk about this stuff.
Yeah, big fan.
He says, hey, look, it cycles and you're going to have certain times you eat more fruit and other times you don't. And times you, but here I could get fruit any time of the year, all year round. Like that point you're making, Dan, it's accessible. And if we want to talk about the environment just for a second, it's like, look, all that stuff has to be shipped here, flown here, trucked here. It's not just grown in your backyard where you just go and pick it and eat it like the old days. So things are a lot different. And then you only have it like I have a peach tree in my backyard. It only gives for a couple of weeks a year. That's it. Right. If you depend on that, like, you know, it's just realizing we've changed our food environment. We're chronic. And that's why, you know, the points you raise in all these different countries, why are they obese now? They're following us because they're adopting our diet. We're killing them with our diet. We're shipping it over there. And, you know, a lot of the points you're making are very valid that, you know, if you want to argue the point about me, and as a matter of fact, I got unfriended by someone, I got blocked by someone because he's a professor in India saying meat's what's causing all the problem. I'm like, in your country, no one's eating meat. You have the lowest meat consumption. Your diabetic rate is the same as ours. You're gonna blame it on meat? Really? Like, how are you making that argument? Where are you getting that from?
The dairy and the butter. But wait about what? France? Does France exist? I keep forgetting if France is real or if I just made it up.
Yeah, but, France, and you look at what they're eating, you go, wow, that's pretty amazing. And their obesity rate's way lower than us and our diabetes rate. So maybe
you can look at India. India has, I think, 10 or 12 different states within India. And there's a state in the upper west called Kerala. And Kerala is a very interesting place in India. And this is a place that I think, like, as a case study, people need to look a little bit closer at, because Kerala is the only place that has red meat farms. They're the only place in India that allows the farming of lamb and of beef. And They are not the richest by any measure in India. They don't have the highest GDP. They don't have the highest PPP per capita. They don't have the highest anything. They don't have the most medical coverage. They don't have much of anything. I think they might be one of the better educated states, but that's all they've got going for them. They are far and away the most long-lived out of all states in India. And that was always this very interesting little fact to me that I don't think people talk about enough. It's like, wait a minute, the one place in India that eats red meat lives like 7 years longer than average. That's not insignificant. That's actually kind of important. Somebody should be looking at that.
Yeah,
right?
that's something. Yeah, absolutely. We should be looking at that and saying, are they putting more muscle mass on? That's more storage for these carbohydrates when you have more muscle mass. And that's one thing we're learning is like, hey, put on muscle mass. If you want to do low carb, put on muscle mass, you're going to do better. And that's what we're seeing that in our patients. The ones who are working out, doing weight bearing exercise, that's why I love Ben Bakikio's stuff, is that they're doing better. I'm seeing people that don't make a lot of insulin get their diabetes under control by putting muscle mass on, because that's the most insulin sensitive tissue you got. So that's something to really, as we get older, sarcopenia, Tro and I've talked about it. That's why, probably why when you say Gregor, and I haven't seen him, and you know, I'm not going to judge him because I don't know him, but you know, maybe that's why that figure he's getting is because he's doesn't have muscle mass. Right? No. Sean Baker, I don't think he's ever going to be Humpty Dumpty.
You know what I do admire about Gregor is I'm pretty sure he's following his own advice, unlike, you know, the YouTube vegans who are clearly all juiced up and like, oh yeah, I eat nothing but fruit, and you got like 17-inch arms. Yeah, okay, buddy. Yeah, all day. Yeah, you're 8% body fat. You can do 40 pull-ups, and you eat nothing but apples. Yeah, I totally buy that. Oh, and you have a book to sell. Oh, and you have a supplement line. Oh, imagine that.
Yeah, we got to look at all that stuff. And I think, you know, one important thing with your topic is you made an observation. You say, hey, I see these people and they're trying to make healthy, and you're encouraging someone, and now that's controversial because it doesn't mean. And I think this is the problem with censorship is whoever's in control determines the truth. So if the Christians take over, then all the Muslims are speaking untruth. If the Muslims take over, the Christians are untruth. If the vegans take over, then the carnivores are untruth. You know, so it's one of those things you have to look at that and say, okay, look, let's hear both sides and let reasonable people make a decision. I think that's Tro and I have harped on this forever with med students. It's a cookie cutter medicine we practice now without independent thinking, and that's a dangerous place to be. We have to look at, like you're saying, clinical observation, what works for you, what's working for your patient, and then be able to make judgments based on that. So it is a big problem.
It's annoying when you see, I mean, almost anything you can look at. I remember seeing a chart where it's like, okay, these foods cause cancer and cure cancer, and it was the same foods on both sides of the chart. And it's like all these studies said that, okay, eating broccoli both causes and cures cancer, and doing this both, you know, red wine both causes and cures cancer. It's like, well, it can't be both. But you have this trend is in basically every area of medicine, but there are still recommendations on things that are not absolutely certain. Okay, does fat and cholesterol in the diet cause heart attacks? I don't know. Maybe there's some data that says, yeah, it could be causative, but there's also data that says actually it might be preventative. So why do we have one advice that is like the standard of advice that we give to everybody that says, okay, your cholesterol is high, or your blood pressure is high, or you have this coronary score or something, whatever, something's wrong with you. Quit eating eggs and meat. Or your dad had this, therefore you might, so don't eat eggs and meat. It's like, well, the data's not there to support it. You know, it annoys me that we have to take these one-size-fits-all things and apply them to everybody, and that has never worked ever. It has literally never worked in all of human history. It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And we have a food pyramid, and 88% of us are metabolically sick. Right, and that tells you something.
That must be because nobody follows the guidelines, right?
Yeah, they say no one follows it, but you know they do everywhere.
If they only follow it,
they recommend it everywhere, but it doesn't work, so people give up on it. That's why they don't follow it. If it works, they follow it. If they're doing better, like you did, you felt better and you followed your own guidelines. That's what it comes down to.
What if we had a place? What if we had a place where they didn't get to choose their own food? Like they just have their food provided to them, and they have to fit the guidelines. Like, I don't know, the military or jails. Are there obesity problems in the military or jails right now? Because
huge problem.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. A lot of the
people. It's a thing. It's a known thing, and it's like, okay, why is nobody looking at this? This is clearly not working right.
Well, because you have no will. I think when they say there's no randomized controlled trials, like who are you going to pay for it? Am I going to pay for it? No, I think at some point you have to trust your clinical judgment and see what's happening.
There's also these randomized clinical control trial like ethics. Like, okay, what if you are giving somebody a heart attack? You're never going to get approved. Does meat and eggs cause heart attacks? What if it does? Well, you're never going to get funding for it now. You're going to kill 30 people just to prove that eggs are bad? We already know the eggs are bad. Fuck it. So
Yeah, that's what's happening. Tro, you want to close us, man?
Yeah, we got one
I got a couple
question.
Q&A here.
Oh, you got questions.
We
Sweet.
got one question here. Okay. Vic says, thank you. Jason says, Tro, you got it all wrong. Adipose expansion is not, it's not even close to only genetic. I always agree with Jason. When you back out environmental and hormonal kind of factors, there's clearly a genetic, component. Like, why does one bear, why is he driven to eat and store more fat than the other bear? Why do certain populations maybe, I don't know if we can make that same conclusion or that same assumption, but why do some people get diabetes at a lower weight? There seems to be some genetic component to that. Bob Collins says, thanks for this. He's heading out. Dave is coming in. He says, thank you. But we got one question for you, Dan. Have you ever eaten Canadian geese?
No, but that's not going to stop me from trying.
That's all we got.
Man,
Listen, Dan,
I'm going to put them all in a crate. I'm going to run them over with my car one day.
Oh, they attack you? Are they attacking you? They're like mean, huh?
They're the worst animal on this earth, and I will die on that hill.
Yeah.
For more goose hate, come visit me on Twitter, because if I'm not bagging on the English, the vegans, or the Texans, I'm bagging on Canada geese.
Dude,
why
are you bagging on the poor Texans?
So much hate.
I don't know. Just because they're so funny.
It's Calexis, man.
As soon as you say anything bad about Texas, the Texans just come out of the woodwork like, oh, with their hats and their belt buckles and their high heel shoes. I don't care. Whatever. We're just having fun. Anybody who takes themselves too seriously, I'm gonna make a pointed effort to dig the knife in a little bit. But it's all in fun.
All my friends live there now, man. All my friends are moving there from California.
Hey, I'm gonna move there. I'm gonna move there. I'm gonna vote to raise all the taxes. So I'm coming for you, Texas. I'm coming for you.
So I want to just say, I think the Canadian geese are a protected species, but we'll determine that on our next episode.
Yeah, we're gonna be bored now.
Thank you guys so much.
No one can protect them from me. Let me just say it that way. You can't protect them all.
No animals were harmed during this filming. For everyone, please edit. The Gestapo out there, please don't come after us. We're joking.
Listen,
this
sorry.
This is a work of fiction.
Our sound editor Jack. Listen, we're really sorry about this one. You're gonna have a lot of fun with this, but we had to make you work a little bit. So hopefully you can get through this, guys. Patreon supporters, thank you. Brian, it's always a pleasure. Dan, Wiseman, thank you for coming on and telling us about your journey. We appreciate it.
It was a blast.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one. Talk to you next time.
Hey everyone, I wanted to let you know about an upcoming conference that really had a huge impact on me, that's helped me on my journey and helped me to really understand metabolic health and what we're doing to make people healthier. And so I have my friend Doug Reynolds, who's the boss, who's putting on this conference. So Doug, tell us about the conferences coming up, Low Carb USA, San Diego. I love it because it's right next to my house and I get to sleep in my own bed and come, but maybe I get to stay in a hotel this time. I don't know. And I get to speak. So man, it's awesome that we get to all meet up together and build community. We all know how important that is. So Doug, welcome. Tell people about what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Brian. It's really exciting to be able to do it in person again. I think there's so many people out there that are just clamoring to be able to talk to people again and give someone a hug and just collaborate like has become so predominant in all the other events that we've done before this COVID thing hit. One of the things that's come up since when COVID hit, we couldn't do it. So then we flipped over and did virtual versions of the San Diego event and the Boca one. And we had a lot of people actually sign up and become a part of that. And so what it has done for us now is make us understand that the live stream component can be very effective for people that can't make it to the event. So this is a proper live event. And I think I want to make this very clear to people that I think they think it's like so many people have asked how many of the talks are going to be virtual and how many are going to be in person. And the answer is every single one is going to be in person. So we will have a live stream component. People will be able to access it via live stream, but all the speakers will be there in person. Anybody that hasn't been able to make it obviously just hasn't made it into the lineup. And I think that's really important, and it's really exciting that we've got all of these people coming out, and some really good names. Gary Taubes has been a stalwart with us. He's like always supported us. The first guy to say, let's do this. You obviously, Rob Sivers, Tro, Tony Hampton, Brett Scher, Dr. Ben, Amy Berger, Diana Rogers. I'm really excited that she's, on the sustainability side. I'm really excited that she's able to make it this time. We've been trying to get her to an event of ours for a while. And this is the first time. Andrea Salcido is a really, really amazing. She did one of the Grand Rounds talks for our SMHP. And she's a gynecologist. We've had a lot of comments from people from the feedback forms and stuff saying that you should get a gynecologist in. So now we have. Michelle Hearn was a potentially Olympic athlete who just like crashed and burned on carbs, and she's a dietitian, and she found keto and eventually basically carnivore, and it's cured her to the extent where she's training for the Olympics again. But she wrote this book called Dietitian's Dilemma, because everything that she'd learned as a dietitian she wasn't doing anymore in order to make herself healthy again. And so it's really cool to have a real dietitian's perspective of the problems that they have. She's basically left that vocation because she just couldn't function in the hospital environment, and that where she was. She was not allowed to speak to people about low carb. And so that's a fascinating story. Dr. Gurpreet Pada, I think you might have even had him on.
Yeah, he's doing amazing stuff with pain management.
He's just one of the most incredible people.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Marco Casella is I don't think
he's a legend.
At least in this one.
Yeah, he's a legend. I worked with him in deprescribing the textbook chapter, and he's phenomenal. And he's struggled with metabolic disease, even though he's a long distance runner, and he was able to get soda out of the hospitals that he's affiliated with, and that's a huge task.
Yeah,
that's a huge money maker. So yeah, so many great people, and I think the big thing is just being able to sit down. I know. For me, being at Low Carb USA, the first time I was able to sit down and have a cup of coffee with some great leaders that were just there, and they just are there to talk. And so there's so much great information. Anyone else we need to talk about, Doug?
Well, Steve Finney is the latest addition to the lineup. I've been chatting with him for a while now, managed to get him on board. Dave Feldman as well. He wasn't sure if he was going to be able to talk because of this research that he's got going on, that he might not have been able to actually speak in public. Arthur Agathton, I think, is going to be fascinating. I did a podcast interview with him the other day. I didn't even know until very recently, but he's the guy that discovered or defined the calcium score. It's actually known as
his name.
Yeah.
And the South Beach diet. He's done so much work. I mean, he's always trying to make people healthy. He's doing a lot. Yeah. So yeah, it's just great the amount of talent you pulled in.
And we've got amazing. The whole, for those people that know about the SMHP, which is kind of the other hat that I put on, the other organization that I run, that nonprofit, pretty much the entire board of directors for that is going to be at this event, either speaking or at least present. And then, the other committees, we've got the panel of advisors for the clinical guidelines. You're on that panel. It's just, there are so many, it's just going to be so many fascinating conversations that are going to go on over that weekend. I can't wait.
Yeah, and and you're also bringing a lot of vendors, like Keto Mojo is always there, and a lot of good people. Yeah. And so try different products, and there's some great Restore program, who's doing some great work through your program and really getting it out to the masses. There's so many great people coming out. So I would highly recommend it. And I worked out a deal with Doug because I want people that, sometimes finance is a issue for people. So I said, Doug, look, my people need a discount. Our people need a discount. So what do you work out for us, Doug?
So yeah, we've got it. If you use the code LowCarbMD, it gives you 20% off and it's not just the ticket. For those people that sign up for the dinners, for those people that require a CME certificate, whatever they add, whatever their purchase is, the total amount, that 20% comes off that total. In the past, when we gave discounts, it came just off the ticket price. But it's not that great a guy. It's actually just that it's easier for me to manage to take it off the total. But
yeah,
as a result, everyone else scores, right? So
that helps too. And then is that for people who come in person and online also?
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
So whatever is in your cart, basically, that discount comes off the total. And the other thing is one of the options in the upgrade option. So if you only buy the ticket now, you can upgrade and buy the VIP dinners later if you want to join us. Or you can, if you signed up for the live stream and you wanted to upgrade to in person because now you realize, hey, everybody's traveling and actually I think I can do this. Then you can still use that code on your upgrade options as well. So you can still get 20% off if you decide later. So if you buy the live stream and later, in beginning of August, you decide you want to actually come in person, you can utilize that code again then for the upgrades and they'll apply, which doesn't happen for anybody else. So.
And what are the dates?
26th to 29th of August.
Awesome. And it'll be live. And if you want to stay in your hotel, I think, can you live stream it from your computer wherever you're at?
Yeah, so that's the thing is it didn't used to be like that either, but I think every time we do this we improve it. So now somebody that's in person has access to the live stream as well. So if they want to watch part of it in their room or something, they can. We would really prefer that they come down and sit in the audience, but if for some reason that's not possible, they can watch it, or they miss something, they can go back and watch that evening or something. They can, watch a talk that they missed or something like that. And then they get access. They get access to those recordings after the event, and then within about 2 weeks, we normally are able to get all the individual videos of the talks populated on that site as well, and they have access to that forever. So
yeah, it's great education. I think being able to, because even being there, I've had times where I want to interview someone or to spend time with someone because they're coming from South Africa or something, and I miss a talk, and I was like, oh shoot, I want to see that one. And so it really does free you up to say, okay, I'll hybrid. You can sit and go down. You can talk to people. You can watch it later that night or on the weekend, because a lot of us are really busy. So that is outstanding. I'm really glad. That's a huge improvement for sure. And and some of those talks you're going to want to watch it a couple of times to make sure you absorb it all, so you don't have to feel like you have to take notes. And Doug hates people taking pictures in the meetings, and because it's distracting for people behind them. So you'll have access to the talk, the PowerPoints and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's really huge. So hey everyone, thank you. I think this is a huge thing. The reason I had Doug on, we have no financial interests. It's really just because I know the benefit of this and how it can help people trying to live a better life and getting on track. And I know it helped me immensely and changed the course of my life, really. So Doug, thanks for all you're doing and continue to do, and you're making a massive impact. So Low Carb USA San Diego, I would highly recommend everyone come out.
Appreciate that, Brian, and thank you for what you're doing. I mean, it all started at one of our meetings many years ago, but I'm so glad that you made it to that meeting, because you're doing great things now too. Thank you.
Hey, I get some good South African food out of it sometimes, so it's all good. So hey everyone, hey, thank you for listening, and thank you for your continued support.